Our new 1-hour format is going to allow us to delve even more deeply into the news and issues that affect Oklahomans the most. We're pleased to present to you now a very important new segment. Each week, we're going to invite notable guests to join us to tackle at length the stories that everybody is talking about. OETA's Susan Cadot will moderate the conversation. This week, we go in depth to discuss the November 3rd election.
Thank you, Rich. It is exciting to have our first edition of In Depth. As you said, I'm Susan Cadot with OETA, and I'm here with some wonderful panelists that we are so proud to have for our inaugural broadcast. First of all, Governor Frank Keating, the 25th governor of Oklahoma from 1995 to 2003. He oversaw the state's response to the Oklahoma City bombing, and his term was also marked by the enactment of welfare reform and tax cuts. We also have Governor David Walters, 24th governor of Oklahoma from 1991 to 1995. As governor, he increased education funding, and he is currently the CEO of Walters Power International, a global provider of local power. And last but not least, we have Scott Mitchell, who is a political junkie, political analyst, and you can currently see him on News 9 here in greater Oklahoma City metro area and News on 6 in the Tulsa area. Thank all of you for being with us today. We have an election just 2.5 weeks away, so let's start with the issues. Everyone is arguing about election security, ballot drop-off boxes, mail-in voting. Scott, I want to start with you on this. Do you think Oklahoma, they've said they're safe as far as ballot casting goes. Are we too safe? Have we gone too far to maybe have some people say we're victims of voter suppression? What say you?
Well, there's the technical aspect, the policy aspect of it, and I think probably most people would agree. Paul Zierix and the Oklahoma Election Board have done an excellent job. You don't see us in the national news like you see some other states, and so there's a policy aspect of this. But I got to tell you, technically, the state Senate oversees the election board. Paul Zierix oversees this. He's very much out there. He lets people know what's going on. From a standpoint of technical, I think we're very, very ahead of many other states, Susan.
What do you think, Governor Keating? Are we too safe?
Well, I don't think you can be too safe. I'm one who likes to vote in person, but I voted absentee a lot when I was living out of state and would come back, but frequently would vote absentee. I think that in my day, there weren't any Republicans, so nobody was terribly concerned about security. But now, obviously, Republicans are very active. Democrats are very active. I think we're going to have a very competitive 5th District race for Congress and legislative races as well. So I think you have to be obviously very careful, but you don't want to suppress the turnout. You want to encourage it for people, particularly who are not able to vote in person. But if we can vote in person, I think that's the best way to do it.
Governor Walters, I was trying to look up the number of states that have ballot drop boxes, and I got anywhere from only 3 states do not have them to, I think, just 38 states have drop boxes. We do not in Oklahoma. Do you think we should have them, and why or why not?
I think we should do everything we can to make it more convenient. But, you know, the Republican Party just got caught in California putting out fake drop boxes. So that would be have to be carefully managed and regulated. I agree with Scott and the governor. I think our state election board has really done a good job historically. They've been on the cutting edge in so many technological areas. The problem is that our legislature continues to make it more and more difficult to vote remotely. They buy into this kind of constant wrath of lies about fraud related to mail-in ballots. I opened my absentee ballot. There are 8 pieces of paper in there. Now, you know, if you spread it all out and read it all carefully, but if you make the slightest mistake in that ballot, it's going to get rejected. So I'm kind of with Frank. I'm thinking I want my vote to count. I may want to get down there and vote it. But nationally, I think we've got a different case. I think the Trump campaign has signaled that they're going to create as much chaos as they can. Politico is reporting that they've got thousands of attorneys. They've got 3 major law firms. They're recruiting thousands of poll watchers. So I think we're going to see a lot of chaos. I think the outcome is going to be relatively clear quickly, but I think we're still going to have chaos nationally after this November 3rd election.
All right, let's do some prognosticating about this major race in Oklahoma for the 5th District congressional seat. This is a major race not only in our state, but folks around the nation in D.C. are watching this very closely. How do you guys think the race is going? I think it might be obvious who each of you wants to see win that race, except for we don't know about Scott. But how do you think the race is going, and do you think it's going to flip back to red? We'll start with you, Governor Keating.
Well, I hope so. I'm a Republican, and I think the Republican Party represents the conservative values of Oklahoma, particularly protection of the oil and gas industry. I think that's important, and resistance to this fantasy of making the District of Columbia and or Puerto Rico states. Then there would never be any competition to the Democratic majority in the U.S. Senate. And I think that's a mistake. I think it's very healthy to have a competitive two-party system. In the 5th District, I think both women are very capable. They have very impressive records. In terms of Kendra Horn, I'm puzzled by why she felt she had to vote to impeach Donald Trump, and there was no basis for that, and also why she voted to make Nancy Pelosi Speaker. There are enough Democrats where you didn't have to do that. They would have given her a pass. In Stephanie Bice's case, obviously the challenges to the budget that she had to face as a member of the state Senate is fair game. I mean, that is, I think, of the strongest of the Kendra Horn ads. But I think both of them are good people. I'm just for the conservative, and we'll see what happens.
Well, I find it curious, almost, or just interesting that we got one federal officer that's a Democrat, and we've got, 2 Republican United States senators, all 5 House members up until Kendra's election were Republican. So we finally elected a Democrat to this seat, and now our big money interests in Oklahoma are throwing millions of dollars at trying to beat Kendra, and she will be the only person that'll be in the majority in Washington. It's quite probable that the House is definitely going to stay in Democratic hands. It's quite probable the Senate will change to Democratic hands. And I frankly believe that Joe Biden will be elected. And so we want to get rid of our one voice for moderation from Oklahoma and replace that with another, right edge voice from Oklahoma, which we have more than abundance of. I think Kendra's done a remarkable job, both in office, reaching across the aisle. It's not an accident you see so many Republicans on TV endorsing her because she's really put her nose down and worked hard and got a lot done.
Scott, what do you think about what the governors have had to say about this race, and what do you think is going to happen in this race?
I agree with what they've said, but I think that the unknown in the room is the president. I mean, this is a district that it's possible, not probable, that the president could lose the 5th District. Now, what you don't see, this is telling to me, you see where Congresswoman Horn got the U.S. Chamber endorsement. We've seen numbers. As we go to a 3rd coronavirus spike, you're seeing unemployment numbers up. We have a lot of issues dealing with COVID, and the president, unlike the primary, where the president was in virtually all the ads, you're not seeing President Trump in Senator Bice's ads. And I've always contended that this race, some of the outcome is going to be dictated by how the president runs in this district. I don't see him involved in it. And people, frankly, are telling me behind the scenes, we're not happy with the president's numbers. So they're running great campaigns, but ultimately it may be the turnout for the president in the 5th District determining who wins that race.
Well, a big element in seems like all the elections this year is COVID. It has just affected everyone down to the core across the nation in 2020, and Oklahoma is no exception. Right now, we're in the top 10 for coronavirus increases in daily rates counting nationwide, and that's from the White House assessment. Scott, I understand you're involved in a trial right now. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Me and my entire family, at least the ones that are still at the house, are in the Moderna trial. I wanted to see, because I'm on the Oklahoma City County Board of Health, and I wanted to see what this was involved. It is an interesting case. We're probably 2 months into this, and people keep talking about the vaccine. I wanted to know internally how this is going to work. And by the way, I think we're about to see Novavax, one of the other companies, is about to start another trial here in Oklahoma. But obviously what we're seeing with the 3rd peak about to happen, not good for the president 2 weeks out, is that we're having to look at the virus continuing to grow during the winter months. And the vaccine, it's a political issue, but it looks to me like it's moving forward that's being well regulated, it's being safe, and they're trying to push the politics out of it. And so far, we'll see when it's over with. They'll let me know what happens, because half of these are placebo, but it's an interesting experience.
You know, Governor Walters, I used to hear early on with COVID that once the cool weather came, it would be better. And now I'm hearing it's going to get worse. It keeps changing. And that Oklahoma is in the top 10 really surprises me. I just feel like we're a little more spread out. So what do you think? What are we getting wrong in Oklahoma?
Well, a lot, frankly. Kudos to Scott and the Oklahoma City County Health Department. They recommended early on to the City Council that we have a mask mandate in Oklahoma City, and they frankly also made other recommendations about having an in-person gathering limit of 25, which the City Council didn't do, not because it's not the right thing to do, but this has been made so radioactive in this election cycle where it's become a political issue that they simply can't, elected public leaders find themselves in a very difficult position to take these positions, but we need mask mandates all over the state. They clearly work. Oklahoma City was 25% of the new cases in the state as late as July, and with this mandated mask mandate, we've now dropped to 17% of the daily new cases. That clearly works, but we need to limit in-person gatherings. We need to close the restaurants and bars. We need to allow and encourage schools to go virtual.
Governor Keating, the governor just brought up a lot of issues. Let's start with the mask. A lot of people in Oklahoma are against a mask mandate. How do you feel about that?
I think the medical community at the top, the CDC, World Health Organization, and the rest, should have been ready for a pandemic. We're going to see another one. The reality is the China virus is here to stay. It's not going to go away in the next 30, 60, or 90 days. I would hope that there would be a focus in DC and at the state level to respond sensibly and aggressively to a pandemic or whatever health challenge there is. I happen to believe in the mask mandate. I don't have a problem in the world. Social distancing, the mask mandate makes sense. Now, should you be in a restaurant with 5 people or 10 people, or does it matter 20 people? As a region of OU, we've established it's a 25% rate, a 25% capacity rate, for example, for our football games. And I think that's smart to do.
Scott, when we talk about it has to be sensible, and we're walking a fine line between keeping the populace safe and keeping the economy going. So many small businesses are already gone in Oklahoma from closures earlier in the year. How do we walk that line, or is it an impossibility? What do you think?
One of the things that I'm seeing, the science says masks work. The problem is that we're seeing some people who simply follow the behavior of the president. And he may set up and say, we need to social distance and wear a mask, but he ain't doing it. And the problem is I've seen some of these studies saying, look, the people can listen to it's not do what I say, it's do what I do. And what we've seen is large sections of the populace who simply follow the example of some leaders in this country and not what the science says. That's a problem. And what we're seeing now is that is taking hold. We look at that super spreader event at the White House. How could you not learn from it? But they haven't. And the problem is in Oklahoma, we've seen in the last couple of weeks, the administration's arguing with Dr. Bratchler and the White House over their methodology. That's not where we need to be. We need to be leaders need to be modeling behavior and helping people who are confused about this get to the point that they understand that a mask is patriotic and the data says it works. I still run into people saying, well, it don't work. I've seen studies. No, you haven't. Okay. No, you haven't. And so both of these governors agree. It's not just a mandate. It is for leadership to be modeling behavior that give people, especially, I will tell you this, white males around this country are following the leadership of the president on this. And they're being macho and saying, hey man, I don't need one of these. and they're reaping the whirlwind.
We're going to stay on COVID as we wrap up. I do want to ask you about the dispensation of the CARES money by Governor Stitt's office, and they're building a lab up in Stillwater. Scott, can you inform us about that and give a little detail about that?
Here's what I know. It's running out. And there's a board that helps the governor oversee this. And as far as the public lab at OSU, don't get in any hurry, because it's not been well reported this week, but there has been some major pushback. It started on social media, people going, hey, why is this leaving Oklahoma City heading to Stillwater? And so I've seen it's bipartisan. I saw several folks on social media this week from both parties saying, for example, one state representative, a Republican, saying, hey, I'm going to introduce legislation to stop this. Leader Virgin and some others are saying, hold on just a moment. So there's a big story right there that's going unreported, largely because there are so many stories to cover. We're inundated with stories, and something like that really gets into the weeds. But I wouldn't put money on that one leaving town very soon.
You three are leaders in this community, and so I'd like the last word from each of you, and I'll start with you, Governor Walters, to be a word of advice to folks during these times with COVID and an election, division, a word of advice to Oklahomans.
Well, we survived it 100 years ago. You know, in the 1918 pandemic in Oklahoma, we lost 7,500 people in Oklahoma. We've only lost 1,000, 1,100 now. So we went through a terrible time there, and we survived. We didn't have vaccines, we didn't have therapeutics, we didn't mitigate the disease, and unfortunately, we were doing many of the same things we do now, where many of the population wasn't taking it seriously. Remember that nationally it was sort of getting tamped down until Philadelphia had a big parade. So I just beg people to be compliant with basic public health care. This is not about politics. This is not about freedom. This is about consideration of your fellow citizens, and protect yourself and protect them, social distance, stay out of crowds, and let's get this thing tamped down. It didn't take very long, 2 or 3 months of compliance, and we're going to have a leg up on it.
Governor Keating?
I agree with what David said, and I would postscript by raising the point I raised earlier. I think we need to be more sensitive to age groups. I mean, I'm 76 years old. I'm in the very high vulnerable category. When we have our family and our grandchildren over, it's always out back. Everybody washes their hands. Everybody has their own boxed meal. A lot of people, particularly kids that I know and parents that I know and grandparents I know, they just assume their children and all of them are fine. Therefore, let all their children's friends come in and sit around and have a jolly time inside. Well, I think particularly with older people, that is infection city, and that's being terribly selfish. I think David's point about being selfish in the sense that I want to protect you as well as I want to protect myself, that's fine. But to me, it's real simple. Social distancing, wash your hands. Obviously, masks make a lot of sense. I don't have a problem, but I certainly hope we would not shut down the schools and the economy when you're dealing with a population that is not vulnerable, that is older students, and or you're dealing with businesses that can continue providing services provided they are socially distanced and clean. And that's been my experience with restaurants in Oklahoma City, that they do it very well. The ones I've been in, maybe some of them don't, but we need to get our arms around this because it's not going to go away in 30 days.
And Scott, looks like you have the final word.
Well, this is a missionary Baptist with two Catholic gentlemen. And here's what we would agree on. One of the problems we have in this country right now is, and Governor Keating just said it, there's some selfishness running amok. It's why we're 4% of the world's population and 20% of the cases. And here's what I would say. We need to be doing unto others as they would have them do to us. Okay. We need to treat each other, the golden rule, start being nice. The selfishness is causing people to go, hey, that mask don't work. I don't care about that mask. I mean, some of this stuff is bogus. And we're about to go inside. We're going to see our grandparents and our parents. I can't see my grandparents, they're long gone, but I got to tell you what both governors have said, 70, 80, 90-year-old people we're going to be seeing in the next 60, 90 days. And people, you're going to, with this liberty nonsense, you're going to be carrying in COVID. 40% are asymptomatic. and killing your grandmother. Okay. So please be nice. It's something that it makes you feel good. And as Governor Walters said, we'll knock this thing out. And Governor Keating said, we'll knock this thing out if we'll just start being kind.
Help us keep Frank Keating alive. Help us keep Frank Keating alive.
And on that note of solidarity.
Well said. I think this was a wonderful, robust discussion.
And I can't thank all three of you enough for participating in this inaugural session of In-Depth. Once again, former governors David Walters and Frank Keating, and political analyst Scott Mitchell, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day.
Bye-bye.
Tremendous conversation. Thank you, governors, and of course, Scott and Susan as well.